Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Marvin Bird Show. You have caught us right in the middle of a series where we're talking about how to respond to student apathy. How to respond to student apathy. Now, largely, apathy is it's a learned habit. Many times, students they enter your classroom with that apathy. It's been sunk in because of habits that they've picked up along the way for a number of reasons. And it's a fact of life. It's something that us teachers that we have to deal with, and we have to learn and figure out ways to respond to it. Now, we talked about how sadly in education there's this focus on blame. There's this focus on assessing blame, when the numbers don't come in the way that we want them. And for sure, we want student achievement. We want student achievement. We want all students to be successful in the classroom, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet. And so in education, there is this, blame is like water. It's got to go somewhere. Blame is like water. It's got to go somewhere. And I talked about how in the first episode of this series that it's a lot easier to just to lay the blame at the feet of teachers, sadly. And it's easier to say publicly, well, the teachers, they just need to develop a growth mindset, or they just need to learn how to embrace change, or they're resistant to change, or they're stuck in their ways. It's easier to say that on Twitter as opposed to, well, he just doesn't seem to care. He's just not interested in an education. And you know where I land. I will forever and always be a teacher, even though I'm not in the classroom anymore. I think that is unfortunate, and I wish that it would stop the laying of blame on the feet of teachers, because I think it does more harm than good. We got a lot of great teachers out there, a lot of teachers on Twitter who read those comments, those blanket statements that blame teachers for where there is a lack of student achievement. And I don't think that's right. Simply because we've got teachers out there, they're busting their butts, they're working hard. And even right now, at the beginning of a new school year, we've got teachers digging into their own pockets to provide resources for their students. They are trying their very best to be a part of the solution. But again, blame works like water. It has to go somewhere. It has to go somewhere. And that's just a fact of life. But I will also say this, because the name of this podcast is Teachers Are Leaders. And we all know as leaders that when something doesn't quite go the way that we had planned, the way that we had hoped for, what great leaders do is we look at ourselves first and try to determine, could could I have done something a little bit differently? What could I have done better in order to affect these numbers that I'm getting from the students? Like, that's what great leaders do. And I think that what happens sometimes is that gets lost when we have conversations, because there's a lot of productive conversations about education through social media and other venues. There's a lot of good conversations, but definitely I would submit to my audience here is I think that we can do better when we talk about education, because we don't have to play the blame game. We don't have to play the blame game in terms of in terms of education through social media. Now, for sure, there are teachers out there who could stand a little pointed feedback in the area of, their lesson planning and spicing things up. That is absolutely true. And it is my hope, it is my prayer that those conversations are being had with those teachers about their lesson plans, as opposed to, social media, blanket statements. Gosh, it would be nice if teachers had more engaging lesson plans. No, that doesn't change the thinking and actions of teachers if it's left on social media. No, those discussions those hard conversations need to be had with the teachers themselves. But I believe that for the most part, a majority of teachers out there are doing what they can. And as we always say, the teachers, great teachers, they exhaust all the tools in their toolbox to help students. And when they've exhausted all of those tools, they go get some more in order to help students find success. You don't always see the fruits of your labor during that year that you're working with that student, or during that time that you're working with that student. But great teachers, we don't give up. We don't give up. We keep trying. We keep trying. And with education, as teachers, and what I have learned throughout my years as well, and this is why I came up with Teachers Are Leaders. I discovered that, what, my administration, they were limited as well. Like, that my administration, they were depending on me to find a solution when it came to, students who were lacking in terms of academic success. The thing that, a lot of my administration, a lot of their response was, okay, we'll suspend them when they make really bad decisions. But the other stuff, in terms of helping them to understand why this was important, why they should engage, a lot of that was left to me, the teacher. And that's why I landed on Teachers Are Leaders. And so we're going to continue our conversation in terms of how to respond to student apathy. I have an article that I want to share with you today. But before I get to that article, what I want to do is I want to talk about my book. It's coming out soon, and very soon it'll be available for pre-order very soon. The name of my new book is Teachers Are Leaders. That's the name of the book. The name of the book is Teachers Are Leaders. It's coming out soon, and very soon. I'm so excited about it. And in this book, it's going to be a very short read. I lay out my case point by point that teachers are leaders. I give you tools that you can use, stories and anecdotes that you can use in order to equip yourself so that you can lead your students to success. So I'm very excited about that. I'll have more information for you in the weeks to come about how you can pre-order yourself a copy of my brand new book coming out soon and very soon. Now, let's transition here. I want to go and I want to point you to an article, and actually I'm going to share this article with you. I'll link to it in the description section. But I want to go back to the first episode in this series when we were talking about student apathy. I believe that in education there are very few absolutes. There's no one size fits all. But I believe that there's one. There's a few things, and this is one of them. I believe that if students understand the purpose of school, then they'll be more they'll be more willing to engage. They'll be more willing to take risks. They'll be more willing to do a little bit more. They'll be more willing to they'll be self-motivated. They'll be intrinsically motivated if they understand the purpose of school. And this is what I submit to students when I talk to them. This is what I submit to young people through my Vision Chasers YouTube channel. And I submit to them this: the purpose of school. The purpose of school is to learn how to set goals and accomplish goals while dealing with obstacles along the way. Again, the purpose of school is to learn how to set goals and accomplish those goals while managing resistance along the way. See, there's a distance between setting a goal and accomplishing a goal. And that distance, that space in between the two, that's where people learn how to be successful. That's where people develop that resilience, that grit, that tenacity. It's all about that distance between the goal and accomplishing the goal. That's the difference maker. What do people do in between setting that goal and accomplishing that goal? Because you can set a goal all day long. You can say, oh, this is what I want to do. I'm going to do this. You can set that goal, but just never get there because you didn't manage correctly what was in between here. And setting goals and accomplishing goals and managing the resistance in between, that is all that's something that applies to every classroom, whether it be math, social studies, English, science. You're learning how to set a goal and accomplish a goal while dealing with resistance along the way. So this is something that I came across. This is a way to help students to really dig into that, to lean into that a little bit more. You see, I think that when they understand, when you tell them that and you make it plain to them that it's about setting goals and accomplishing goals, and that employers are looking for anyone who can do that, who can set a goal and accomplish a goal and manage resistance. Like all employers are looking for that. That's what employers are looking for. That is universal. Everyone can benefit from that. Employers are looking for people who know how to do that, who have those skills. That's what employers want. And I think that once you lay that, once you drop that seed, students are going to listen to you. You got students at that point. And so now that gives you the opportunity to, now that you've given them those words, now what are you going to do? What actions are you going to take to follow up on that now that you've got their attention? And that's why I think what I'm going to give you today is going to be very important. We're following up on that purpose. We've given them the purpose. Now what are going to be the action steps to back up that purpose, that thought, that seed thought that you've dropped in their mind? And to that end, I want to share this with you. Okay, so I want to share with you this article from Edutopia. And the title of this article is Guiding Students to Sustain Effort in School. And they give a number of strategies that you can use, but one of the strategies that I want to focus on, it's called facilitate goal progress awareness. Notice that word goal. Remember, my purpose I tell students, set goals, accomplish goals, manage the resistance in between the two. So it says here in this article, again, I'll link to it, goal progress awareness requires frequent feedback and sustains student effort. Their brains will invest more effort in the task, and as a result, students are more responsive to feedback. This progress awareness builds their ability to recognize that their effort is correlated to their progress and boosts their perseverance. Again, as teachers, you're the architect of your environment, and definitely how your students think that affects the environment in your classroom. That's why this is so much more than just executing a lesson plan. This is why I say teachers are leaders, because you have to pay attention to this. And I thank you so much for being here to consume this information. And I hope that this information leads to transformation in the way that you think and in the actions that you take in your classroom. And I hope the same happens for your students as a result. So let's look at this. There are a few steps in this to facilitate goal progress awareness. The first step is simply consult with students. Now we know, and I'll never ever, I promise, I would never disrespect you by saying, well, number one, you got to build relationships with students. I would never throw something out there like that and just pretend like it's just groundbreaking information for you that you never heard of any such thing. I know that you know that. I know that you know that. But step one here, when it talks about consulting with students, it's digging deeper into that relationship, right? It's digging deeper into that relationship by talking about, what are your goals? Now that I've shown you, hey, this is the purpose of school. We're going to be doing a lot of goal setting in this classroom, just like you're going to be expected to do goal setting in the real world when you leave here. Show me here in this English class that you can set a goal and that you can accomplish that goal while dealing with a ton of resistance along the way. If you can get that work in, if you can get that practice in, whoa, you're going to be in great shape at the next level and the level after that and the level after that, because you've had that practice here. So let's sit down during this consult with students. Let's sit down and let's see if we can see if I can help you to set some goals based off of what you're thinking. Okay, so that's step number one. You're consulting with students. You're their guide. You're helping them along the way. You're encouraging them to do a lot of the talking, and then based on the things that they're saying, let's set some goals. Okay, so step number one: consult with students and set some goals. Step two: remind students how to get help when blocked. Now, I think that this is often, these are the times where it helps if you could multiply yourself, if you can be in multiple places at one time, because I see this a lot in math classes. When I go to observe a math teacher, I'll see the teachers in there, they're standing on their head trying to address students, trying to help students all throughout the room. Once the teacher has released the students to work on their own, all right? And so the teacher's working with one student, and then, student in the back's got their hand up. And then you may have another student over there, they've got their hand up after, did they try their very best? Did they go through everything that they could have done while they were by themselves? Maybe not. And so as a result, that leaves the teacher just like, oh man, if I could only clone myself, that would be great. So I'm reminded of that when I talk about this step. Remind the students how to get help when they are blocked. And a lot of times this is a habit that students need to learn. Like just because it doesn't feel good here, just because you're stuck, just because the answer doesn't immediately come to you, that's okay. That's okay. What are the things that you can do before you raise your hand and ask a teacher? Did you ask the partner sitting next to you? Did you review your notes? Like, what are the things that you want your students to do before they raise their hand for more direct instruction? Not that you're discouraging that, but remember, the practice is how to set a goal, how to accomplish a goal, and manage the space in between. And as students get older, they need to take more accountability and responsibility to manage that space in between themselves, like using the resources that are at their disposal before they raise their hand for more direct instruction. Because once they get to a certain level, they're going to be expected to dig in here a little bit more in order to find that solution. So it's just really good practice. Step 3, have students create progress journals. There's just nothing like, for sure, words of affirmation from teacher to student. That's great. That's great. But I think that there is something that happens in the mind in terms of developing that growth mindset when the student writes down, when they write down their progress, when they write down the things that they've accomplished and how those things make them feel. You see, when we talk about mindset and helping students develop that growth mindset, the growth mindset, that's always going to be something that you have to work on daily. You have to work on daily, because if you don't work on it daily, then it becomes a fixed mindset that doesn't immediately seek to find solutions. It's a fixed mindset that settles on less than what could be more optimal, what could have a more favorable outcome. You see, you constantly renew your mind daily by the things that you read, by the things that you say. You're constantly setting your mind on growth as opposed to letting it remain fixed daily, each and every day. And I think that with these progress journals, allowing students to put their own words on paper, or if you desire, type on a Google Doc or whatever, they're constantly there's that internal process which is so important, of them writing out, this is what I accomplished today. I was able to connect the dots here on this problem, and I got it right. I feel good about that. I can do this. There's just something magical that happens internally when students are able to go through that exercise. So have students create a progress journal, and then they can go back to that journal and read it and just see how far that they've come over time. Next up, check in intentionally. Now, when I was in the classroom, I had a student desk right next to my desk, because I valued that time. I valued that time talking with students about how they were doing, how things were going, checking in on progress. And I think that is something, when you do that, you're modeling to students, no, you don't just say, this is the goal that I want, and just leave it at that. No, you're intentional about checking in on the progress. How are we doing? We said it, we meant it. How are we doing in regards to the space between us setting the goal and accomplishing a goal? So checking in with your students, it shows that you care. And again, it just, as we all know, relationships are important, but this illustrates the point that relationships are foundational. We can't do any of this stuff if we don't do the work to build if we don't do the work to build that foundation, to build that relationship. We got to have that, so that when we check in intentionally, the students, they trust the things that we say. They trust what we're trying to do. And then step number 5 is provide preview rubrics of what will be evaluated in the project unit or test. I just think it's always good practice to give students those things ahead of time. It further answers the question, why am I doing this? What's the purpose of this? What is the goal? What specifically am I being asked to do? And I think that that's good practice. That's good practice because as great teachers, we're already planned out. We know what we're doing. We know what our focal point is. So why not share that with the students so that they have an understanding of it as well? And then what this does, as the article says, is if students, they know what they're going to be evaluated on, this can also promote confidence within students and help them to feel less overwhelmed because there are no surprises coming their way. So the only good can come from this. Again, we're talking about how to facilitate goal progress awareness so that each and every day students, they understand how they're doing in terms of managing the space between setting a goal and accomplishing the goal. Next up is complete an effort to progress graph. Now this is very simple, and I think it's interesting as well. So just imagine a pie chart. Okay, imagine a pie chart, and it's cut out in quarters. Okay, so and each quarter of the pie represents a step in a project that a student has to do. Now, with technology, we can do all sorts of things in terms of, color coding the pie. Let's say the pie starts out, all the quarters, they start out as red, right? But as a student completes a quarter, that specific quarter of the pie turns green. Okay? And that's just another tool to help students visualize their progress. And that's important. That's important. And that's something that many students can benefit from. That's something that many students can benefit from. If you think about a lot of the apps out there, a lot of apps use this kind of technique to inform people and to manage their thinking and expectations as well. We just had pizza night. Last night was Friday. We had pizza night. We ordered from Domino's, and Domino's has something very similar where it charts out the progress. It's pretty cool because it's a bar, and as they go along with each step to prepare your order, you see it starts here, received your order, and then it gives the name of the person. Andrew is preparing your order, and that part fills in red. And then the next part, your order is in the oven. And then the next part, Andrew O is checking your order to make sure that it's cooked the way that you want it. And then the next part, Frank is on his way. So I think that's good. And we as a society, we're conditioned to, we know what that is. And that helps. That can only help. And then it also gives a link to, creating those nice little charts. And again, I'm going to share this article with you. So last but not least, number 7, and I think that this is also good practice as well. And it speaks to the grading practices. Number 7, give self-corrected practice tests. Again, when we talk about grading for a lot of students, there comes that anxiety. But one way you can take away that anxiety is by allowing students these opportunities to test in a low stress situation. Like, here's a practice test. I want you to see how you do on this practice test. And what happens here is, as it says in the article, students can see their status and evaluate changes, such as what to focus on, strategies such as rewriting notes, taking multiple self-corrected practice tests, and all these things they are allowed to see, they're able to see because they're so focused on the goal. They're allowed to see how all of these things impact their success along the way. They're able to draw the line of connection that, oh wow, this, because I was so laser focused on this goal and progress monitoring along the way towards accomplishing this goal. Yeah, I did good on this practice test, and I can specifically point to questions 3, 6, 7, and 10 because I was focused on my goal. That's how I was able to get these right. Now, these other questions that I didn't get right, I need to make some adjustments there, and I can do that. But I feel pretty confident because I know based on what I did, I was able to get these questions right. So I can do the same with these other questions by the time the actual test comes along. That's how it works, ladies and gentlemen. That's how it works. So again, let me run through those. Today we talked about the need to facilitate goal progress awareness, because that's what school is. It gives students the opportunity to practice setting a goal and achieving a goal, managing the space in between. Number 1, consult with students about their goals. What do you want to do? Number 2, remind students how to get help when they're blocked. What do you do when you're stuck? What can you do? How can you depend on yourself to get yourself unstuck? Number 3, create a progress journal where the students are using their own words to talk about what's happening inside of them. How are they changing? How are they better? And then number 4, check in intentionally. This is just building on that foundation of the relationship that you've already established. And you're just checking in with them, seeing how they're doing. That's just what you do in a relationship. You check in. And then number 5, provide preview rubrics. What are we going to do during this unit? What is expected of me during this unit so that there's no surprises? And then number 6, an effort to progress graph, visually showing students how they're doing throughout the unit, throughout the progress towards their goal. How are they doing so they could visually see it? And number 7, give self-corrected practice tests, giving students low risk, low anxiety situations, because ultimately the test is coming, giving them an opportunity to see how they might perform on that test. Well, that is today's episode of the Marvin Bird Show. I thank you so much for being here. And until we meet again, please don't forget to check out my website, marvinbird.com, for some very brief professional development opportunities, and my blog posts take you about 5 minutes or less to get through those. So thank you so much. And until we meet again, please don't forget that teachers are leaders.